govern itself. I can tell you this as president, I will welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu to come visit the White House. And we will welcome being able to go to Israel to have bilateral meetings. We have to reject the efforts of the Biden administration to undermine Israel's claim to a unified Jerusalem, and they are trying to do that. Israel has a right to a unified capital. Goes back to biblical times, and our country's policy has been very clear on this in statute, and for them to try to undermine the progress that has been made is wrong. So we will be unequivocal that Jerusalem is the eternal and indivisible capital of the state of Israel. We also have to reject the Biden administration's attempt to force a, quote, two-state solution with pre-1967 borders. First of all, those borders are indefensible. They want to carve up Jerusalem and all that. But here's the thing. You can't do peace with people that don't believe you have a right to exist as a Jewish state. And we must, as I mentioned, reject the notion that somehow Judea and Samaria are occupied territory. The connections with the Jewish people go back thousands of years, and they have every right to have very strong communities in those areas. We're also going to reverse Biden's BDS policy of prohibiting funding for scientific cooperative projects in eastern Jerusalem, the Golan, and Judea and Samaria. Think about this. They don't want to fund those projects, which, first of all, some of the greatest innovation in our country, in our world, is coming from Israel. And I've asked people in Silicon Valley, is there more per capita innovation here or in Israel? And they admit there's even more in Israel. So there's some potential great cooperative agreements that we can have here. Yet Biden is saying not to do it yet. While he's saying no support there, he's bending over to provide sanctions relief for Iran and for funding projects with the Chinese Communist Party. How does that make any sense at all? It is wrong. January 20th, 2025, with respect to our relationship with the United Nations, there will be a new sheriff in town. We are not providing tax dollars to United Nations entities that are targeting Israel. We reject things like the Human Rights Council that brings in all these really bad regimes and they just attack Israel. We reject things like UNESCO that doesn't even recognize the connection of the Jewish people to places like Jerusalem. Are you kidding me?
You're just listening in there, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis speaking at this event there in Arlington, Virginia. I'm Andy Mack. Let's settle it for a quick 2-minute break. back into live right now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Let's shift gears a little bit here. We want to take you out to Nashville, Tennessee as a Hollywood actors strike, an actors strike there on hand as there was a rally there. So we're going to continue to follow this. Last week, the actors joined the writers on strike for the first time since 1960. You can see there talking about artificial intelligence, talking about the union. We've heard from several different people, potentially holding a press conference in a little bit there in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll have all of those remarks coming up in just a little bit. Also, a live look in downtown New York City, just about 5:15 on the East Coast. Let's get back into some international news as the United Nations Security Council holding this meeting on the situation ongoing in Ukraine. Let's just listen in here as different representatives and officials from different nations speak out here on Live Now.
Has been adding fuel to the fire of a global food crisis. As a result, families on every continent struggle to make ends meet, and children go to bed hungry every night. And now, with announcement that it will withdraw from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, Moscow is threatening even more people, more children with starvation. By helping to bring down global food prices, this initiative has been a lifeline for the weakest and most vulnerable around the world. As the Secretary General has pointed out this morning, after Russia's pulling out, we immediately saw wheat prices jump. Cody.
As they just get out of that meeting there in the United Nations, of course, live filters, as you can see, at the White House now. This is still a live picture. We just switched feeds a little bit here. As you can see, we're expecting an event taking place around the Women's World Cup, around the festivities, around all of that. A lot of excitement in the world of soccer, of course, with Argentina winning the Men's World Cup earlier on this year. Lionel Messi joining Miami. That was a big presentation last night down there in South Florida. This coming up in just a little bit. First Lady Jill Biden hosting a youth soccer clinic with the Major League Soccer organizers and other people there. So this is a live picture there as we continue to await this here on Live Now from Fox. Let's get out to earlier at the White House. Let's stick with this thing. Take you out to the White House press briefing from a little bit earlier with John Kirby as well as Karine Jean-Pierre. Let's listen into her remarks here from earlier.
Well, it's because of the work that this president has done, and certainly we are leading globally, and as our economy is getting back on its feet, especially after getting through this pandemic. As far as the inflation that may be caused because of the grain, I know the Admiral talked about how we've seen some prices go up just today. I don't have a full count of how that's going to certainly affect the positive momentum that we've seen as far as inflation going down, but it's certainly something that we're going to monitor and keep a close eye on.
Secondly, Kirby had a question about Congressman Jack Alt's comments. Let me ask you about the Democratic officials' comments about that bigger suggesting that COVID-19 was definitely targeted at certain populations. For instance, the leader of the Democratic Party, does he believe that that sort of language, rhetoric, secondly, has any place in the Democratic Party or the American public life at all?
It's an important question. I want to be careful here because I don't want to address a 2024 candidate, right? We're not going to do that from here. But what I will say more broadly, which I think is important, because I think as we look at the last 2-3 years since 2020, since this pandemic hit, there are countless Americans, American families who are seeing an empty seat at the Thanksgiving table, right? For the past, who knows, couple of years, couple of years, because of what the pandemic has done to families across this country, because of the suffering of COVID. And that is something that we have to acknowledge. And that is something that is important that we speak to. Because if anything, all of us probably have that same, sadly, that same thing in common, that we have lost someone that we loved because of this pandemic. So the claims made on that tape is false. It is vile. and they put our fellow Americans in danger. If you think about the racist and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that come out of saying those types of things, it's an attack on our fellow citizens, our fellow Americans, and so it is important that we essentially speak out when we hear those claims made more broadly. I want to quote something that the American Jewish Committee said, which is the assertion that COVID was genetically engineered to spare Jewish and Chinese people is deeply offensive and incredibly dangerous. Every aspect of these comments reflects some of the most abhorrent anti-Semitic conspiracy theories throughout history and contributes to today's dangerous rise of anti-Semitism. And so this is something that...
You're just listening in there to the White House press briefing from earlier today there in Washington, D.C. I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, out at the White House, we did see a celebration. First Lady Jill Biden hosting this event there just ahead of the Women's World Cup starting later on this week. And you're able to watch right here on Fox. But another international sensation coming to the United States last night. It was Messi mania taking place there. I want to put up this tweet right here on Live Now from Fox from Michelle Kaufman as Lionel Messi gets his Inter Miami number 10 jersey from the team owners there. And we're going to be joined on the ground in Miami by Michelle. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. It was a wild and wet night for the introduction. Maybe how exciting is it for Miami to get Messi, and what was it like to be there in person as Messi was introduced for the first time?
Oh, it's been completely insane here since June 7th when he made his announcement. There are gigantic murals. We've had stories in the Miami Herald. Huge murals have popped up all over downtown Miami. They cover large buildings are covered with Lionel Messi murals of his head, of his face, of his, everyone here is going crazy for Messi. Miami is a very Latin American city, and there are, I believe it's about 150,000 Argentines that live in Miami. So it's a very, very large Argentine population. In addition to that, a lot of Colombians, Venezuelans, Peruvians, Brazilians, and everybody in Central America, the Caribbean. It's a soccer crazy town, and this has been rumored for a long, long time. But we never really thought that it would happen. We never thought it was possible that the greatest player, not only in the world, but arguably, one of the three anyway, top players of all time, mentioned with Pelé and Maradona, that he would choose Inter Miami, the last place team in Major League Soccer. This is where he's going to continue his career. So, it was, the ownership group was very enthusiastic and really was optimistic, but the rest of the world, including me, just thought, this can't happen. He's not going to come here. And he had a $500 million offer from Saudi Arabia. He had an opportunity to go back to Barcelona, where he spent 20 years and is an icon there. And he chose to come to the United States and bring his family here and continue his career in the United States, and specifically in Miami, where he already owns 2 luxury condominiums and is house hunting for a third home.
That is super surreal there, and obviously a pinching moment. We're going to get into the dynamic of maybe why Messi decided on Miami, but last night, kind of reminiscent of Prince at the Super Bowl singing in the rain. I believe that was also in Miami. You talked about the storm that descended on South Florida. Fans had to wait to get in. They were soaked. They were getting in. But just talk about just all the dynamics of last night with the rain and the excitement and how it came all together.
Yeah, everyone was very excited. They had the stages all set up. Everyone was ready to go. And the gates were supposed to open at 6 o'clock. At 5:45, it was almost like a movie. I sometimes think that team is cursed, and there's like some dead body bones. Something's buried in the ground there. The weather incidents that come into that stadium are really unbelievable over the years. But anyway, all of a sudden we're sitting there, and it was almost like Wizard of Oz. This dark, black cloud just comes and just sits over the stadium, right over the stage where Lionel Messi is about to be introduced, and then starts a torrential, like a biblical level, thunderstorm with lightning and thunder and these sideways sheets of rain. They put up on the scoreboards a giant, warnings, weather warnings, and they told everyone they had to seek shelter. So all of a sudden you had thousands, there were about 18,000 people there, all, standing in the parking lots waiting to get in the gates, and all of a sudden they're all stuck in this major storm. If you want to talk about the passion for soccer in this community, I can tell you that they sat through that rainstorm and they did seek shelter, but everybody was wet. There wasn't a dry person there. Everybody was soaked to some level, and they stayed. The delay was about 2 hours, and they stayed until 8:30 is when the event actually started. So they sat in the rain or sat in some soggy place for 2 hours, and when that thing started, when they started that event, the place was almost packed. You would never know that there had been a torrential downpour an hour and a half before. So, this town is crazy for Messi, and it's going to be interesting. And you had asked why would he come, which is what a lot of people are asking. And it really makes financial sense because he is 36 years old now, and he's setting up for the next stage of his life. And by being in the United States, first of all, he already has a lot of corporate sponsors that are based in the United States, really big companies, and he can establish more of a presence on U.S. soil. With Copa America is coming to the United States next summer, which is the most prestigious South American tournament. They're going to be hosting it in the United States with the U.S. also participating. And then in 2026 is the World Cup in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So for Messi to establish himself and even make his brand bigger in the United States, if that's possible, it makes sense that he spend the next 2 years on U.S. soil in MLS. And the other thing I'll mention is that Apple and Adidas were very instrumental in this deal because he is going to get a cut of every Adidas jersey that is sold, his number 10 jersey, and it is expected to be one of the top, if not the top selling jerseys of all time. And then Apple TV, which last year signed a 10-year, $2.5 billion broadcast contract with MLS. Their idea was to spread Apple product, spread Apple products and spread MLS around the world. And what better way to do that? What better way to reach the entire globe than to have Lionel Messi playing MLS games every weekend, and people from Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia can all tune in on their Apple devices and watch Lionel Messi play games. So it all really makes perfect sense.
It's going to be incredible, and like you mentioned, he is going to pack the seats whenever he decides to finally play. But I do have to ask you about another person that was instrumental in this. And like you mentioned, Messi joining the MLS is a major milestone for this league, because in previous times we've seen David Beckham come over, we've seen Zlatan Ibrahimovic come over, maybe not necessarily in their prime, but also a main component of Inter Miami is David Beckham, and you saw him on the stage and a prominent figure there with Messi being introduced. How big was David Beckham in getting Messi here, and maybe how did Beckham set the groundwork for it when he himself did come over to MLS a little bit of time ago?
Yeah, I think David Beckham was very, very instrumental. First of all, the fact that he had come over here, like you said, he came here, that raised MLS to a higher level. The exposure that the league got by David Beckham coming here. Just like Messi, David Beckham was a global icon. He's, was a fashion icon, a sex symbol, a soccer player known around the world. Every corner of the globe has, fans that were wearing David Beckham jerseys. So when he came to MLS and played for the LA Galaxy, it raised the profile of this league significantly. And I think by him coming here, it has led to other named players coming. I know for sure the fact that, Messi spoke to him quite a bit about what is it like here, what was it like playing the league, what is his lifestyle going to be like as a global icon in the United States, in MLS. And, for his family, it was very similar. He has 3 little boys. The Beckhams had little kids at that time. It's kind of a very similar situation. So David Beckham was very, very instrumental. I mean, David Beckham when he decided that he wanted to have a team and have based in Miami, he said right away, this was in February of 2014, he said, I want to bring some of the best players in the world here to raise the level of this league even more, to raise the exposure of the league even more, and to grow the sport in this country even more. He's really been very dedicated to that mantra, and having a very strong youth academy on the team, so a lot of young players are coming up. That's all something that David Beckham, that was his vision when he took this team, and he was able to deliver. He and the Mas brothers were able to deliver. Not only Lionel Messi, but also Sergio Busquets was announced last night, who was Messi's teammate on FC Barcelona, a member of the Spanish national team, a captain of FC Barcelona. Again, one of the top players in the world. Not as iconic as Messi, but a very well-known player. And I believe a third one, Jordi Alba, is coming next. So there will be three, as far as I know, three former FC Barcelona teammates playing together in MLS for Inter Miami in a few weeks.
David Beckham certainly speaking it into existence there with Messi less than a decade ago, saying that when he helped found Inter Miami. We saw Messi there introduced. When is he finally going to get on the pitch? And maybe how packed are those stands going to be for that game?
Well, he's training tomorrow. They're having a media train. We're allowed to watch training for the first time tomorrow. I've heard that there are going to be 200 journalists who have been given credentials, a lot more applied. And it's going to be live streamed and everything. It's going to be a big deal. His first training session public that the public can see through a screen, and that we can watch live. 200 media members. His first game is expected to be this Friday, July 21st. He's supposed to play his debut. I don't know how many minutes, but he is expected to play this Friday against Cruz Azul in a tournament, a new tournament called Leagues Cup, which is between MLS and the Mexican League, Liga MX. They're having a month-long tournament. The MLS is on a hiatus for 1 month while they play this tournament. And he and Busquets are both supposed to make their debut this Friday night. And yes, the ticket prices for this game and also for future MLS games have gone up a lot. For example, a typical Inter Miami game in the end zone, you could sit in the north or south stands for $35 to $40, and those tickets, the minimum price that those are going for is about $250, $350. So it's gone up about 10 times. The price of tickets has gone up about tenfold.
The Messi effect there in Miami. Michelle Kaufman, thank you again for providing all this just insight into what we know with Messi coming to town. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate all your insight here on Live Now from Fox.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll put up one more tweet there out of the Miami Herald. There, as you can see, the murals there from the kids in Miami. Messi there joining this club. I'm Maniac. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break. live now from Fox Eye and Andy Beck. There were dueling potential campaign events. One from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He was in Arlington, Virginia earlier on today. Now moving on to South Carolina. Also in the bottom right portion of your screen there, Senator Joe Manchin out of West Virginia, potentially a third-party candidate there at a No Labels town hall. So those two events ahead of the 2024 presidential election. And speaking of the White House, they're gearing up for the Women's World Cup taking place in just a little bit. An event taking place there on the South Lawn as they're tearing it up just a little bit before Joe Biden. We're expecting her to make some remarks as well. So those are some live events we're following here on Live Now from Fox. But first, let's send you right back out to South Carolina for Governor Ron DeSantis there. More than a month out from that first GOP debate. Let's listen to what he has to say here on Live Now from Fox.
We called it Exposing the Book Ban Hoax because it is a hoax.
So the audio isn't the best on this event. We've already heard from Ron DeSantis once today. So let's move it on over as Joe Manchin there and the governor of West Virginia, John Huntsman, also participated in a No Labels, quote, common sense town hall. Let's listen to these remarks here on Live Now on Fox.
Great. Well, they're also talking about whether or not, specifically with money, should groups like No Labels have to be transparent about where that money is coming from?
I would think the Democratic Party and Republican Party should be transparent. They got $1.7 billion in the 2020 election. $1.5 billion for the Republicans. That's over $3 billion of dark money nobody knows anything about. Nobody knows anything about. So I can tell you, if you want to change Citizens United, it can only happen in Washington. Both parties are going to have to pass a legislation that basically outlaws Citizens United. Then you can stop all the dark money.
I mean, what is happening is what everybody else is doing. It's just the norm with 501c4 organizations. You're asking me if that's right or good. I say, no, I don't think it's right or good. I think there should be transparency and accountability in all things. But that's not the way people play the game. What Joe's talking about, billions of dollars run through the major parties, hidden and dark and all of that. And I've heard this, you know, that we're, you know, a dark money organization. The fact of the matter is the system sucks. It's broken. I mean, if we get a group of good Americans together, all of whom with an IQ over 85, in a room together, and say, does the way we finance campaigns make sense to you? And nobody would agree that how we're doing it today makes sense. So, in the true American tradition, we will evolve, and I hope we heal our wounds and we fix this glaring error in how campaigns are run by campaign finance reform. I was with John McCain, whose campaign I co-chaired, and came to introduce him here in the state many times in 2008. I loved him, and I was a proponent of what he was trying to do with campaign finance reform. Reviled and hated by a lot of people, but I think it's time we get back to a rational and sane discussion about how we go forward.
So let me say one thing. You said it's mushy. You know it's mushy?
I said, what do you say to people who said,
I can take them myself. I can speak and I can tell for No Labels that they would change Citizens United overnight if you could. But that only happens in Washington. So I'll be one vote. I would vote to overturn Citizens United and make it the law of the land that you cannot have dark money in politics.
All right, I want to get to our first audience question, and I believe we have a microphone somewhere in this room. Yes, right over there. And if you could please state your name and where you're from, as well as your question. Thank you.
I'm Em Friedrichs from Durham, New Hampshire, originally from Exeter, New Hampshire. And I'm worried about the flooding and the tornado watch that was right here in Manchester and all over New England this week. And this extreme weather is from more cars like the Mountain Valley Pipeline that Senator Manchin did take as kind of a special interest and fought very hard for tooth and nail this past year. And so my question is, are taxpayers going to be the ones burdened with this? Or do you agree that fossil fuel companies should be responsible for the mess they created and fund cleanup of climate crises or climate disasters?
I'm happy to speak to that because I believe in all the energy policy. This country cannot run unless we have on all the energy policies. And basically 65 to 70% of the energy comes today from fossil. Can we use fossil cleaner? Yes, we have. We've cleaned up the environment more in America in the last 2 decades than anywhere else in the world. Most of all of your pollution right now in the next 10 years will be 90% from Asia. India and China are spending and using more of this without the constraints that we have. Low NOx boilers, scrubbers, baghouses for mercury. But with that, we're investing more in new clean technology, carbonless technology than any place else in the world. With the IRA bill, that's basically going to say we're going to have the fuel that it takes to run our country. We're the superpower of the world. We can't be dependent on foreign supply chains. And we can do that better. We couldn't help our allies. And let me tell you, with the Ukraine war, it showed you what Putin can use for energy. He used energy as a weapon. You can't get caught like that. Now, in a perfect world, you can have whatever you want energy-wise if you can do it. We don't have renewables that will run 24/7. You want electricity 24/7. You want your heat. You want all that. The Mountain Valley Pipeline put 2 billion cubic feet into the marketplace within 6 months. It's down here up forever. Up here, you pay some of the highest prices. Why should you pay 6 times more than those than us down in the southeast, I guess, south Midwest? Why are you paying so much up here? They have no pipelines whatsoever that we can get the gas to you. But yet you were getting propane shipped in from Russia. So we know the problems that's going on here. That shouldn't happen in America. With that, we will transition. It will happen. We don't have that technology. We don't have it this time.
You're just listening in there to Senator Joe Manchin in Manchester talking about this no labels common sense town hall. Following those 2 campaign events, of course, also Florida Governor Ron DeSantis there in South Carolina. Let's take you right back down to Capitol Hill on live now from Fox. As we were talking about new resolutions, including this one is from our Fox News team. Chad Pilgrim, State Representative Richie Torres introducing a resolution today to censor Representative George Santos. The resolution focused on Santos about his name, faith, and education, along with his mom dying on 9/11. Let's take you out to some Democrats here on Capitol Hill. Richie Torres speaking right now here on Live Now from Fox.
Quick and expeditious investigation into the misconduct of George Santos. One House Republican from New York said that he would be held accountable within 60 days. So here we are 60 days later, and there's no accountability, and there continues to be complicity and silence from House Republican leadership. And keep in mind, unlike prior censures, which were largely politically driven, no one disputes that George Santos perpetrated wrongdoing. There is no dispute about the unethical misconduct of George Santos. The question is whether are we willing to hold him accountable. And House Democrats have long been willing to hold him accountable, whereas House Republicans have been treating him as if he's untouchable, have been treating him as if he's a conservative Supreme Court justice bound by no code of ethics. So that's the fundamental divide, the question of accountability. But no one disputes that George Santos perpetrated wrongdoing that merits congressional consequences. And if you're a House Republican who has called upon him to resign, then you should have no trouble voting for a public censure. If you have informally condemned George Santos, you should have no trouble formally censuring. Right? A public censure follows logically from the claims of outrage on the part of the Republican Party. Look, there should be, but if the outrage of the Republicans is manufactured, and if there's an insistence on protecting George Santos from accountability at all costs, then obviously that's going to stack the odds against the resolution.
I would just add to reiterate the point that I made earlier is, for any Republicans who vote yes to censure George Santos, the next question they should be asked is, if you agree with this censure resolution, why did you avoid holding him accountable when you had the opportunity on an expulsion resolution, and you copped out and you referred it to the ethics committee for yet a second time, even though there was already an ongoing resolution? But the other thing I wanted just to add to Congressman Torres, this should not be a political issue. And part of the reason it shouldn't be a political issue is that the preamble to this resolution, the litany of lies, deception, and fraud that George Santos has executed should not be a question as to whether or not he belongs in Congress. And that is the trouble, is that this has become a political issue because the Republicans consistently put politics over the people, and especially in this case, the people of the 3rd District of New York, who have effectively not had representation this entire Congress.
Powerful case can be made that the evidence is sufficient to publicly censure him, because everyone concedes the record. There's no record that has to be established. Everyone concedes that he lied to an egregious extent that's unbecoming of a member of Congress. Right? So we're not debating whether he committed wrongdoing. We're debating whether he should be held accountable for his wrongdoing, and we believe he should be held accountable. But again, we did not set the timeline. Speaker McCarthy said that there would be a rapid and expeditious investigation, and one of his members, based on conversations within the House Republican Conference, but the 60-day timeline. So if you tell us that within 60 days, Mr. Santos is going to be held accountable, we're going to follow up. We're operating on the terms that the Republican Party said. As far as we're concerned, all of it is disqualifying. It's an embarrassment that he not only lied blatantly to Congress and to his constituents, but he has the shadow of a federal prosecution hanging over him. But in the end, we determined that let's leave the questions of criminal law to the official legal process, because the lies in and of themselves merit congressional consequences. We have to send the message that there will be congressional consequences for defrauding the institution of Congress and defrauding the American people. So no final decision yet on the vote. Obviously, I would make the decision in consultation with colleagues and leadership, but the likely timeline is before the August recess. Yes, I mean, the Republicans can do to the public censure resolution that they previously did to the expulsion resolution introduced by Bobby Garcia. There could be an attempt to table the resolution. But again, if you're a Republican, a House Republican, a so-called moderate Republican from New York, and you informally condemn George Santos, then why not publicly censure him? If you've called on him to resign, if you're sufficiently convinced of his wrongdoing, that you've called upon him to resign, then what possible justification do you have for not voting to publicly censure him? So the American people have a right to know where those Republicans stand. Is their outrage manufactured, or is it coming from a place of sincerity? And the only way to know is voting. asking whether Republicans are guilty of hypocrisy, I wholeheartedly agree. But in the Schiff case, it was purely partisan. And only Republicans were leveling charges against him. In the Santos case, both Republicans and Democrats agreed that he engaged in wrongdoing. Both sides agree that he lied to the American people, but only one side is willing to hold him accountable. And we've said the avoidance of accountability can only continue for so long. And now is the time for accountability. Thank you, everyone.
You're just watching this event there on Capitol Hill here on ICMAC as the resolution there introduced there by Representative Torres out of New York, talking about the bipartisan nature of this censure, which is different than the Adam Schiff censure most recently. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox.
Individuals putting dark money behind an organization. And that's not what our democracy should be about. It should not be about a few rich people.
New label says they'll stay out of the 2024 race if polling shows their candidate is in a spoiler role. In Washington, Caroline Sheltley, Fox News.
Thank you again for that report. That was some good context into this town hall that we're going to take you out to live next out of Manchester, New Hampshire with Senator Joe Manchin there. Let's listen to him as he continues to speak there alongside other people at this town hall there in Manchester, along with the former Utah governor, U.S. ambassador to Russia, John Huntsman. Let's listen in here on Live Now from Fox.
The last 21 years, consecutively 21 years, with a stepping point we've taken in this country. The last 21 years. Can any of you or any of us, any business, any family, survive with spending more than they have to pay for 21 years straight? Think about that. That puts everything in perspective.
All right, I want to get to another audience question, and I believe we have one right over there.
Stephen Bourne, New Hampshire. So from my personal campaign experience last fall running as an independent, I found that many people are voting against, not for. If we want all the federal government we're buying to work for us and not the power of a political party, how can Americans be convinced that now is the time to be brave, knowing that the downside risk of the side they fear the most, Trump or Biden, could win? Nothing's going to change unless we do things differently. So how can these common sense positions, the unity ticket, get the American people to finally be brave?
By doing what you're doing tonight, showing up, being here, being part of something. Look at all the chatter that is already the interest into pro and con. Why are people scared to have an option? Why are they scared that they may be threatened to do the right thing? Why are they scared to say, hey, you're too far to the left, it doesn't make any sense. So we don't live our life over in extremes. I live my life on the right or the left. I've got to make decisions for myself and my family, pretty much in the center left, center right. And the Republicans, I've said this, I've never met the first person that's always wrong. But I've never met the first person that's always right. Now, I've walked away sometimes thinking that because I never spent enough time to extract the value they have. That's our fault. John, I can sit here and talk. We can agree, we can disagree. I guarantee you one thing, we'll find a pathway forward. We will find before the day's up a pathway forward. But if my business model is more of you all will support me or or more of you all will give more money to my campaign if I don't work with John and set to make something happen. And pretty soon the business model becomes the driver. That's what drives it. It's not basically rewarding for working together and solving problems. We're expected to do that. This is a democracy. We have a representative form of government. And I asked your children, if I was ever in your classroom with your kids or grandkids, I would say, what have you done today for your country? And they look at me. I said, what have you done today for your country? He says, why would you ask a question like that? I says, it's yours. You own it. It's a republic. And it's a representative form. So what have you done? They started thinking. He said, I said, anything. Because when you own something, the value is how you take care of it.
Sir,
no one knows. We don't keep citizens.
Senator, with all due respect, the polls suggest that the majority of young people are trending downward when they are asked if they feel patriotic about.
We haven't talked about being patriotic. They don't know what the country. They don't know how we got here. If you don't teach it in school and it's not being talked about, they don't understand the value of what we have.
It's because young people, wait a minute, it's what it is, because I've got young kids. I've got two in the Navy who are terribly afraid. I have another who's of one service. People do not feel connected to the country. They don't have a reason to be invested, to get out and vote, and to learn about the issues. So how do you change that? Well, one of the reasons that Mary Kay and I and our because they have to serve. They have to put some skin in the game. So we actually advocate in this document for some kind of national service union, which I think would be a great thing to do. Again, I've lived in multiple countries. Almost every country in which I've lived, there was mandatory service of some kind. I'm not talking just about military service, but how about teaching? The most noble career in the world, being an educator. How about that? How about working the problems that we've got around the country in terms of giving kids an opportunity to have some ownership in this country and reflect upon what the ideals and values in this country mean to them. Then we're going to get around to the earlier question, which is one of the reasons we're not getting these big issues on the to-do list is because we haven't made problem solving a value among voters. The minute, so politicians respond to signals, right? And if the signal is, you're not going to get my vote unless you can figure out how to solve this on a bipartisan basis. When was the last time you heard a candidate come through here who even mentioned the word bipartisan? It's like, it's a term that may suggest you're somehow weak. But that's how business is done ultimately. You've got to have a coalition of the willing, in the middle usually, that gets things done. So in short, I will say, the onus is on many of you in this most innovative state called New Hampshire. And that is, when people come through here, you need to make it a point to say, what are you going to do to highlight these issues that are really the important ones to us? We value problem solving. We value bipartisan interaction, one with another. That's when you're going to see it register.
Can I follow up on the point that you made, Senator, which was this trust in the process? And when you have former President Trump saying that the results of the 2020 election were not legitimate, and a large portion of his supporters who believe that, how do you get back the trust of all Americans into the democratic process?
It is so sad to be in a situation to live in a great country such as this, where people are led astray for either social media or something different ways as a result of receiving information. Get totally confused. The bottom line is, the person who believes the only election, a fair election, is the one that wins. The only law pertains to everybody but me. Not really good. Cruel laws what makes us different. It makes us different in any place in the world. You see Madam Justice, and she's blindfolded for a reason. She doesn't know what color you are. those elections were accurately counted, so we never counted elections. So, you have to read the facts and accept them. And the one thing about the political process, when the race is over and people have spoken, you move on. That's democracy, the order transfer of power. And that's what the whole world is watching us. And if they see that they can divide us, and John Roseby, when they can divide us, when they conquer, they don't need to fight us. They don't engage the war. They don't want to fight us. They can see us fighting themselves. They won.
Are they leveraging that? Are other adversaries leveraging the division via social media platforms, for example, Governor, in the United States to drive that division, not just amongst political parties, but amongst race, amongst sexual orientation? Are they trying to instill hate into the democracy?
So the name Didi Raposa is well known to everybody now. The person who ran the another insurrection in Russia. So Yevgeny Prigozhin was Putin's chef. He ran a restaurant and later was given a military food contract, which made him a billionaire. But what a lot of people don't know is that Yevgeny Prigozhin in the neighborhood of St. Petersburg, also ran some of the darker operations that Putin sent him to do. So the black box operations that Prigozhin was influenced, including the troll farm outside St. Petersburg. So when we read Facebook, Twitter, a lot of social media, and we see these extreme, the extreme commentary on both sides seeking to divide these Americans around race, around gender, around anything else that can be exploited after some shootings, after unfortunate incidents. Well, guess who got it? Yep, the Russians. They're pretty good at it. And they've been doing it for a long time. I wish more Americans were aware of that, realizing that the damage we think we're doing to one another, that it's a fellow American behind it.
An issue like gun rights, just to switch.
Let me just say one thing on that here. As Americans, I think the response would be that you're asking about different generations and what you think about this, and the wokeness and genders and things. I would say this, my simple answer is this. I was raised in the way that every American should have an opportunity to quality life. I don't care who you are, the name you are, I don't care who you are, you should have an opportunity for quality of life. That's my job. That's my job to make sure you have that access. And we can treat each other. I mean, the love of America, the whole world's watching us and all this. And the children, and one final thing on that. I mean, in China, one time, we wanted to find out how their education system worked. My wife's an educator. And we went to one of their exemplary schools, and we were 12 girls, 6th grade. And we just asked the question, I said, what do you think about America? What do you think about our country? She says, I wish I could think like America. She said, I wish I could think like Americans. She told me everything in that one statement. They don't have the ability. Anything they want to be, they could be anything they want, they could have any education opportunity they want. We take all that for granted in this wonderful free country. And you're going to talk about guns now.
It's one of the most, I mean, respectfully, we haven't talked about gun shootings and mass shootings in this country. It's one of the most concerning issues in the United States right now, and it's also one of the most polarizing. And so how do you address the very real mass shootings that are occurring? Because respectfully, Congress has not done anything on gun.
Some Kevin Congress, I agree with you. I've tried. After the same gun shooting, this is my business. I come from the state that's gun in the state. In West Virginia, if you don't have a gun, then you can't get there. So it's just the way we were raised. But we were raised with gun sense. We were taught how to use a gun. We were taught how to carry a gun. We were taught that we don't loan our gun to strangers. We don't even loan our gun to our family members not responsible. You never sell your gun to somebody you don't know. That's gun sense. That's a gun culture. Now, all of a sudden, we've opened this thing up. And I started thinking, where did this happen? So, to have I've got grandchildren, 10 grandchildren, and I have my daughter, but I know she flinches every time she sends her kids to school. This school should not be telling adults. We should know about this now in America. But with that being said, the people that we know and the people that we should know, that are absolute criminals who are going to do dangerous crimes, have mental illness, should not be allowed to have access. You have to do a much better job. Some of this, basically, I'll give you the gun laws of 1934. I remember all the machine guns back then, we see the movies and everything. In 1934, they didn't outlaw a machine gun. You can still buy one. It's very difficult, very costly, but you can buy one if you're a true sportsman. You've never had an axe killing with a machine gun. But now we have all of these others. So maybe there's things that we could do to making sure that the people, the most dangerous people, can't get their hands on them. And if people aren't basically restricted about what they want to buy, as long as they're buying it for the right reason, and they have the confidence to do so. So there's a balance here to be had, and everyone's talking about elimination, this, that, and everything else. And the Second Amendment comes up. But the bottom line is, we must protect our children, and to have America, what people are seeing across the globe, what's happening in the streets of America, is basically they're winning the battle, the same as the drug cartels are winning it, the same as China's winning it, the same the precursor of fentanyl into there and killing 60,000 Americans every year.
So how do you make the schools safer, Governor? Especially if there's such polarization on an issue like that.
This is a heartbreaking issue. The violence, the tragedy, the way it plays out, the way it impacts we as Americans. And this it is a heartbreak. What we're not speaking about seriously enough is a mental health crisis that exists in this country. And it's only been supercharged by COVID. And I'm involved in building a mental health institute out west in Utah. And we've got a big problem on our hands. How do we get more mental health awareness into schools? How do we get it into rural areas where we have suicide rates, sadly, among some of those who have served in uniform or veterans? It's off the charts. And I think a lot of this over time could be avoidable. But we need early detection and recognition. We need enough mental health support to be able to deal with serious cases when they've been identified. We need insurance policies that actually recognizes mental health on the same plane as physical health. And right now there's a huge gap. So a lot of untreated cases, things that people don't even want to talk about because of the stigma.
I want to get to another audience question, and I believe we have yes, right over there.
My name is Jeff Harrison. I currently live in Bow, and to make it come, I just want to say I've been formerly from Murray, Utah. My question, over the last decade, we have seen many enlisted soldiers pass on renewing their contracts as they don't see the military as a viable career, or people who want to serve get turned down to service because of a broken appeal system to get waivers for certain medical conditions. If either one of you were president, how would you come together with both political parties in order to fix this issue?
I think I can speak on the military. The greatest recruitment I have seen is from the ROTC, junior ROTC, all the way up to ROTC into the college system, paying for education. A lot of the families have a tradition, and a lot of our military is served by family tradition. You might have first, second, third, fourth generation, but I don't know where. We could probably speak to this better than anybody. But we're having a challenge right now. And the bottom line is that education attainment, okay, criminal codes, sometimes a violation like those of youth, you can't get them into the military arena. We can look at all of those things. But the bottom line is we cannot allow the readiness and quality of the men and women who serve to be relegated to basically a lower standard. That's what keeps us different than any place in the world. We have the most professional military. Now, when I was going through the time they were drafting, everybody was getting drafted, but they come to the conclusion that we're going to have a professional military, well-trained, well-paid, well-disciplined. Now, if that's not working, the only people who are meeting the quotas right now are the Marines. They're still very, very attractive people and macho men. Whether be a man or woman today, they want to be involved as a company. But we're having trouble with all our others, but we're still going well. Now, with that being said, National Guards Guard today is not National Guard of your grandfathers or fathers. These are professionals. They're professionals and they're ready to serve and they're filling the gap all over the world. So there are so many things we can do. There's a thing called Challenge Academy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this at all. But Challenge Academy is where they take wayward children and we put them into basically, it's a boot camp. It's run by the National Guard. And while I'm so proud of this because I was such a big proponent of West Virginia's governor, we just had a kid who would have been going to juvenile probably in prison, now going to go to West Point. Went to the Challenge Academy. It's unbelievable as far as turning people around. But we have to make it basically a patriotic duty that we all have to serve. And when John talked about national service, every 18-year-old should get 1 year of service of some kind to this country, somewhere, somehow, 1 year of service. And we're talking about it could be health care, it could be education, it could basically be welfare work, it could be an awful lot of things where we have basically a void all over the country that people need assistance, especially in rural states.
I want to recognize Evan Blair, who is here. Yes, Joe has one of my heroes and somebody who has served this country so valiantly. The labels, as with Dr. Bennett, Joe Lieberman, and so many others.
You're just listening to this town hall there in Manchester, New Hampshire, with Senator Joe Manchin. I'm going to be back here on Live Now from Fox. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break. Into Live and Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. We turn our attention to New Hampshire now, to North Dakota, to a very difficult story from over the weekend. I want to put up this tweet from the University of North Dakota Police saying, our thoughts and prayers are with the Fargo Police Department, community, and families impacted by today's incident. We're going to be joined now on the ground in a neighboring state in Minnesota by Fox 9's Rob Olson. It is a very difficult kind of week there for the entire community in North Dakota, Minnesota, as one person was killed, 2 injured, as this gunman ambushes those officers. What are we learning from the victims and the families here after this tough incident?
Well, let me just set this up by saying, of the 3 officers impacted by this, 1 killed and 2 critically injured. Well, the officer who was killed was from St. Michael, Albertville, which is a northwest suburb of the Twin Cities. One of those critically injured was from Eagan, Minnesota, which is a southeastern suburb of the Twin Cities. That's where we are now. And we found out, as we're waiting to learn more about the investigation into what happened on Friday in Fargo, learning more about these officers involved. including this rookie officer who was from here, played baseball on this field here at Egan High School, graduated 4 years ago. We talked to his varsity coach today, who said he was very encouraged by the fact that he was able to exchange text messages with his former player, this rookie officer, as he recovers in a hospital in Fargo.
Putting himself before everyone else, this is really the Ty's always been.
Steve Butler spent 2 years coaching Ty Haas in Egan varsity baseball. Haas was his starting catcher his senior year in 2019. Butler sharing these pictures on the team's Twitter account on Sunday says on Saturday when he learned his former player was one of the Fargo officers critically injured, sent him a text message of support.
I just spoke from the heart and told him I loved him, and I woke up Sunday morning with a text from him, and it just said, "Coach, appreciate the support." And I have goosebumps. I have goosebumps right now thinking about seeing his name pop, on my phone on Sunday morning.
Haas, who got married just this past fall, joined the Fargo Police Department just this spring, about the same time as 23-year-old Officer Jake Wallin, who was killed on Friday when a gunman identified as 37-year-old Mohammed Barakat opened fire at the officers as they responded to a traffic accident. Barakat was shot and killed by another officer, and his motive is still under investigation. Wallin graduated from St. Michael Albertville High School in 2018. The superintendent there releasing a statement Monday that read in part, "He made a significant impact on our school community and beyond, and his loss will be deeply felt by all who had the privilege of knowing him." Meantime, a GoFundMe is quickly growing for Officer Andrew Dotis, a 6-year veteran of Fargo Police, who was also critically injured. And Fargo Police are now directing donations to the Leadership Care Fund, an independent site which will support the families of all 3 officers. As for Officer Haas, Coach Butler has a lot of faith in his former player.
He's such a strong-willed young man. I just, in my heart, I just believe he's gonna recover from this.
And Coach Butler saying too that he's talked to others who had also similar text message exchanges with this officer in Fargo as he's in the hospital. And they see that again, some of those text messages at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday, yesterday, and so they see that again as a positive sign that even as he's critically injured, he's able to respond to these messages, and they see that as a sign of hope for his recovery. But again, a lot of this at this point remains unknown just what will be involved in that.
Yeah, still a lot of questions left to be answered in terms of motive of this potential gunman. I do have to ask you a question, especially for our national audience, North Dakota, Minnesota, neighboring community, but still it's very tight-knit there in the Twin Cities when you're out there in Egan. Maybe how much is this impacting the community as a whole, the Twin Cities as a whole, seeing someone just from a neighboring state, a place like North Dakota, which a lot of people from Minnesota go to, and also people from North Dakota venture to Minnesota. Maybe how close-knit is that community?
Well, certainly there's a lot of, Fargo is about 4 hours away from the Twin Cities to the northwest, but a lot of people have either grown up there or have family there or have gone to college there as well, go to the university there. So there's certainly a lot of that. But to find out that 2 of these 3 officers involved, one of them the one that was killed and one that was critically injured, are both from the Twin Cities area, certainly makes this even more impactful. Not that it's not already very impactful when you hear about officers being fired upon, 2 critically injured and 1 killed as they respond to a traffic accident. All the questions that come from that, like what was happening here? Was this planned? Was this? We don't know. Fargo Police have not released a whole lot more information from when they had their news conference on Saturday. The FBI is involved in the investigation. The North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation involved in the investigation. So again, we're waiting to find out more of what they uncovered here. But certainly when you hear about this going on, once again, officers being killed in the line of duty, not far away. And again, this Fargo is right on the Minnesota and North Dakota border. And then having these officers from the Twin Cities area certainly is very impactful to a lot of people.
All right, Rob Olson, thank you so much. A very tragic story there. We're thinking of their families very much. We appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you so much again, Rob Olson there, Fox 9 team in Minnesota. I want to put up the tweet one more time from the University of North Dakota Police, as they say, our thoughts and prayers are with the Fargo Police Department, community, and families impacted by today's incident. I'm Andy Mack here on Live Now Fox. We're going to slide away for a quick 2-minute break.
access to soccer for all, including right here in Washington, D.C. How about that? Soccer has more power than ever to have a lasting impact on this country and the future generations of young people as the soccer World Cup comes to our shores in North America in 2026. To the future soccer stars that are here with us today, we hope that some of you grow up to become players for DC United or the Washington Spirit, or even find a very compelling career in soccer off the field. Whatever your chosen journey, be fearless and dream big. Dr. Biden, I want to thank you for having us here today. To commemorate this day, we'd like to have you wear this beautiful jersey that you're already wearing. How about that? That's the jersey that our players will be wearing on Wednesday night. And now I'd like to introduce you to our true rising star, a student at Dunbar High School and a participant in the DC Department of Parks and Recreation programs for the last decade. She's an athlete, she's a leader, and she's a young entrepreneur. Please welcome Nevaeh Burrows.